14, 15, 16-year-old, even 18-year-old Temi, there's so much I wish I knew back then. And today I'm going to share my personal art advice to my younger self. So let's go. Hey people, it's Temi if you're new here, and it's Tuesday today, so you already know it's time for a Temi's Tirade. This is a series where I just come here to rant about art things on Tuesdays. If you want to catch up with the other videos in the series, I'll link a playlist here, but today it's all about reflections. You know, we're coming to the end of the year, and I don't know about you, but this is when I really just start to reflect on how the year's gone and what kind of art I produced in that year. And this year really got me thinking. I didn't do that many portraits this year. Because of the style of the content I do now, I don't just sit here and dedicate my time to do full-blown portraits all the time. But then I even thought about it. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Why have I even put myself in this box of just portraiture as an artist? Why have I put myself in the realism box as a whole? I think some of it just comes down to the fact that that is where my personal interest is. I love drawing portraits. I love capturing people's expressions, people's joy. That truly gives me joy. And I remember when I was at school, so when I did my GCSEs and A-levels, this was age 14 to 18. No matter what the theme was, you say similarities and differences, I'll be like, ooh, which person can I draw? Can I draw some twins? The similarities, but the differences between them. You say ordinary versus extraordinary, and I'm like, ooh, who can I draw? An ordinary person with an extraordinary life story. Everything I did just had to link back to portrait. I did not even give still life a chance. I think I can admit that I was kind of addicted to drawing portraits. And that just leads on to the first thing I wish I could say to my younger self. It's not everyday portraits. It's such an interesting one for me because I can actually imagine being a 16-year-old Temi right now and a future 25-year-old Temi come in and be like, you're doing too many portraits, try to do other things. I would just be looking at her like, sis. To be honest, I remember when my joy for portraits came up. In life, I'm so detail oriented. So the fact that I can capture the finest details is actually very enjoyable for me. Thinking about my art inspirations like Heather Rooney and Calvin O'Carroll, I could see what they could do. And to me, to 16-year-old me, I really wanted to create art like that as well. For me, it was a motivator. I was just excited to even be able to get to that kind of level. And I know I'm saying all of this in a negative way, but I don't actually think my focus on portrait was necessarily negative. I'm just saying, looking retrospectively, I definitely pigeonholed myself too early, in my opinion. Realistically, the most progress and the most improvement I saw in my piece only happened a few years ago. It didn't happen 10 years ago when I was at school. So I really wish I used that time to just explore loads of different subject matters. And I always said to myself that portraits is the one I enjoy the most. But I don't know that I've even given other things a chance. Like in GCSE times, I was just stuck on black and white graphite portraits. That was it. And I wish even back then I explored color. I think I'd have a much better understanding of color theory, for example. So I know how it sounds, but I won't say I regret doing portraits. I'm still glad I learned that skill. I think it's an amazing skill to have. However, I will say I regret not exploring other things in the beginning. So like still life, like landscape, surrealism, impressionism. There's just so much that I wish I'd explored with my early art brain. And that kind of leads on to the second one, which is just to explore different mediums. So like I mentioned earlier, back when I was doing my GCSEs, I was addicted to this graphite pencil drawings. You know, I was looking at Calvin O'Carroll. He was creating incredible pieces. Even my final piece, and actually, if you're not that familiar with the whole art process, especially GCSEs in England, you would have coursework and sketchbooks all through the year. And then your final piece, you're meant to do your most ambitious work. You know, it's meant to be on a really big scale. And my final piece was a graphite pencil drawing. And it's not like I was capturing every pore and every this and that. Was I not just smudging and blending it anyhow? So just thinking back to my GCSE and my work back then, would it have killed me to even just stepped my foot and experimented with other mediums? And even thinking back to my A-levels, I went to a school that had an incredible art department. The artwork that students in the school were producing, I remember when I first had a tour around the school and they had it all on the walls, and it's just insane. Yet coming to the school, all I knew was graphite pencil drawing. So I was just there like, I don't know about any of this. But of course I had to venture into color. I had to paint in the school. But again, I was so pigeonholed in portraits and doing a realistic portrait. Okay, how do I make the skin tone? How do I do this and that? And looking retrospectively, I just wish I was more free with my art. I was more free with the different mediums I gave a try, the different subjects I tried to draw and paint. There was one student that made this massive 3D model. And in my head, it was just like, let me face my portrait. But imagine if I had actually harbored that kind of skill. It's just things that I definitely regret because I mean, the supplies were in the school. I could have bought the supplies, but I'd have had my teachers to guide me. But all's not lost. So that's definitely an itch I'm trying to scratch on my channel now. I've got a series called Temi Tries where I just find different art supplies that are outside of my comfort zone. Of course, the tutorials won't stop, so don't think I'm going to stop them altogether. But I definitely want to do more and explore more with my art. With this next journey of my art, it's just about growth in so many different areas. So the first video I did in the Temi Try series, I had a mystery box of art supplies. I did not know what was inside. Oh no! Acrylic paint! and I needed to create art. So these kinds of things are so out of my comfort zone, but it just allows me to see what I can produce with limited supplies or new mediums. It's just a lot of fun, and I think it will make me a much more well-rounded artist. And to be honest, I think it's great watching artists that have mastered their mediums. I think there's so much to learn from those artists. But at the same time, if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I show my struggles, I show my failures, and I think it's just so much more relatable for me to struggle with the acrylic paint or try to create a masterpiece with crayon. There's just so much more stuff that I just cannot wait to get my hands on now. If you're subscribed from earlier this year, you would have seen the gouache paint that I bought and literally did not use since then. I think I did that video in March. So as we conclude this year and going into the new year, just expect loads of different art supplies, just different new things I can create art with. I'm so excited, and I hope you stay for the journey. And the third thing I wish I knew when I was a younger artist is to use and appreciate your teachers. Back when I was at school, one of my biggest regrets was not using my art teachers. And I don't mean using like taking advantage of them, but they're literally there to help you. And I had this weird love-hate relationship with my teachers. So back when I was in school, when I was in year 9, I had the most amazing, incredible teacher. And she was an awesome artist. I was so inspired by her work every single day. Every single time she would tell us to create something, she would have an example that she started. And it just inspired me to go further with the art and just to think out of the box and just utilize the themes just to create amazing work. I was so inspired in year 9. And then she left. And then my teacher in year 10 and 11, although she was lovely, she was an amazing person, there was just a little bit of disconnect for me and her. I don't know what art style she actually did, but I knew it wasn't realism. So I didn't find her that helpful with the art ambitions I had back then. And the biggest problem was probably that I was comparing her like for like to the year 9 teacher that I loved so much. In fact, I remember at school when she was critiquing me about some work and she said, "Temi, I wish I could draw like you." And I was just thinking, you're the teacher, so what am I meant to learn from you if you wish you could draw like me? It was a really awkward thing for me at the time. And to be honest, I think I was just being proud, because even if she couldn't do realism to a standard that I thought was good enough, the reality is I could have learned so much more from her. And in an exact opposite contrast, the relationship I had with my A-level teachers was just a strange one, because they were incredible artists, but because I put myself in this tiny box of realism and portraiture and I didn't want to hear anything else, I don't think I actually utilized them to help me grow as an artist and just for my overall art journey. And most of all, the problem with not even having a good relationship with your teacher is that unlike other subjects where you have like external examiners and you know your maths exam is marked centrally or your science, whatever, art is marked by your own teachers. If you didn't listen to anything they said, what mark do you think they'll give you? So yeah, I wish I listened to my teachers more, and I wish I valued the knowledge and experience they had. So the fourth piece of advice I would give to my younger self is just to take more pictures and record more of my older work. If you're familiar with my channel, you might know my first video was from 2011, and that first YouTube video was a Jessie J drawing, and I was very proud of that drawing. In fact, I remember posting it to Facebook at the time, and I was getting so many compliments about the drawing. But the reality is that wasn't the first drawing I ever did, yet I think that's the first one I actually recorded and took pictures of. And it's kind of sad for me, and although I can look at that drawing and see so many improvements, I feel like I'd appreciate my journey even more if I actually recorded where it's really started. But I know it's the whole perfectionism thing. If I'm not truly happy with the work and then someone points out all the flaws, it just brings out to another level of vulnerability that at that time I wasn't mature enough for. But it's so funny how now I've done a complete 180, because so many of my videos, so many pieces of art that I show on YouTube now, I'm not actually 100% happy with. In fact, I go down to say that a lot of them I'm around 60 to 65% happy with the actual final piece. And old me would have never uploaded those videos. They would not have seen the light of day. But the reality is I put so much pressure on the amount of videos that I wanted to do that I was like, if this artwork isn't perfect, I can't come and die. And most of all, it'll be great to look back on anyway. I think there's something really great about doing art in this day and age where you can really follow an artist's journey. And that's just a piece of my younger art self that I'm really missing. Even if the proportions were off or the colors didn't make sense, imagine me doing a video redrawing my old art, like gold content ideas that now I can't do because where's the old art? I'm kind of exaggerating because I do have some pretty old pieces. So this was the first drawing that I did for someone at my school. Loads of people asked me to draw them, and I started with this one. And even looking at it now, there's so many things that aren't great about it. But the only reason I even posted this one and the only reason I have access to this now is because I was actually proud of it at the time. But anyway, the lesson here is just about perfectionism. Perfectionism is a myth. Something I've learned over the years is that I'm not going to spend extra hours on something that's only going to change the final piece and make it a tiny percentage better. My time is definitely more important than that. I've never tried to chase hyper-realism for that exact reason, because I will never get anything finished or get it to the standard that I actually love it. I don't know if any of you artists can relate, but when you look at an artwork for so long that it begins to look, but yeah, the lesson here is you might not always be happy with the final piece, but record the artwork anyway. And by record, I mean take a picture, take a video, whatever you want to do, but you don't have to post it on the internet, but at least you have that just even for yourself. And the final one is don't put too much pressure on having everything all figured out. I think this is the logical / planning side of my brain that kind of takes over. And I'm just telling my younger art self to be more free. I think that's the running theme with all of these points that I've discussed today. And maybe that really is the next direction for my personal art. I definitely don't think it's too late to change up your art or change up the kind of style that you do. I believe art kind of encapsulates and immortalizes a moment in time. So the art that I was creating at 16 just captures my thoughts, my ideas at that age compared to the art that I was making at 21 and even the art that I'm creating now. But I guess it's just something I wish I had started earlier because art is an ever evolving journey. I don't believe it's meant to be stationary in the slightest. And as we change, as I grow, as I change, I believe my art will also change with me. Art can have this amazing, deep, intense meaning, and art can simultaneously also just be fun and enjoyable. And I'm definitely just trying to embrace that side of it more. So as I mentioned, tutorials won't stop. I've gotten to a certain level with my art and I definitely want to bring people up. But thanks for watching and I'm sure you love this one next.